seated before the bench arrives. May we all be seated, thank you.
Chief Justice, members of the court, I appear for the applicant together with my learned friend, Ms. Mutemwa.
Thank you.
Chief Justice and members of the court, I appear for the respondents in the matter.
Thank you very much. This is a judgment, a unanimous judgment written by myself, in which the following colleagues concur: Bilchitz A.J., Chaskalson A.J., Madlanga J., Majid J., Matopo J., Mhlantla J., Deron J., and Chikri J. It is an application for leave to appeal that was brought by Mr. Mulefi Jonas Mamasedi against the Chief of the South African National Defence Force, the Minister of Defence and Military Veterans, the Chief of Army, and the Chief of Army, who were the first, second, and third respondents, respectively. Mr. Mamasedi was in the regular force of the South African National Defence Force in 2011. His conditions of service, including those other members of the regular force who were there at the time, was governed, among others, by Section 59(3) of the Defence Act 2002, that is Act number 42 of provision reads as follows. A member of the regular force who absents himself or herself from official duty without the permission of his or her commanding officer for a period exceeding 30 days must be regarded as having been dismissed if he or she is an officer, or discharged if he or she is of another rank, on account of misconduct with effect from the day immediately following his or her last day of attendance at his or her place of duty, or the last day of his or her official leave. But the Chief of the Defence Force may, on good cause shown, authorize the reinstatement of such a member on such conditions as he or she may determine, close quotes. This is the provision that is at the center of the dispute that arose between Mr. Mamasedi and the National Defence Force. On the 29th of November 2011, Mr. Mamasedi absented himself from work from the Defence Force and only returned on the 3rd of January 2012, a period of more than 30 calendar days. And when he returned, a board of inquiry, the first board of inquiry, was established in terms of the Defence Act to establish the circumstances under which he had absented himself. His explanation was that the reason why he had not been on duty or had been away for that long was because he had been kidnapped and taken to an initiation school against his will and had been kept there all that period. His father's version, according to the first board of inquiry, however, was different and did not support that version. The first board of inquiry concluded that, in effect, Section 59(3) of the Defence Act had been triggered because it said that the administrative charge, which refers to the discharge that is contemplated in Section 59(3), the administrative discharge should continue and he should be paid all his pension contributions. Mr. Mamasedi was dissatisfied with this outcome and approached the High Court to set this outcome aside and asked the High Court to order his reinstatement. His matter came before Wenzel AJ, who concluded that the board had failed to comply with procedural fairness in dealing with Mr. Mamasedi and ordered his reinstatement after setting aside the outcome of the board. The SNDF took that matter on appeal, that judgment on appeal, to the Supreme Court of Appeal, where the Supreme Court of Appeal set aside the order of reinstatement that Wenzel AJ had made, but dismissed the appeal against the finding of the High Court that the first board of inquiry had treated him in a procedurally unfair manner. Subsequent to the judgment of the Supreme Court of Appeal, the National Defence Force established another board of inquiry that was now in 2018. And that Board of Inquiry came to the same conclusion as the first Board of Inquiry and made the same recommendations as the first Board of Inquiry, namely that the discharge, or what they called the administrative discharge, should continue, and that Mr. Mamasedi should be paid his pension contributions. Mr. Mamasedi was once again aggrieved and took the outcome of the second Board of Inquiry to the High Court to challenge it again. The High Court concluded that the second Board of Inquiry had also treated Mr. Mamasedi in a procedurally unfair manner, in the same way as the first Board of Inquiry had. The High Court refused to set aside the decision of the National Defence Force not to reinstate him. And again, Mr. Mamasedi was aggrieved. He approached the Supreme Court of Appeal again to challenge the decision of the High Court not to reinstate him. The Supreme Court of Appeal refused him leave to appeal. He applied to the President of the Supreme Court of Appeal for reconsideration of his matter. That was refused, and then he applied to this court for leave to appeal effectively against the judgment of the High Court. In this court, the South African National Defence Force continued to oppose the application for leave to appeal as well as the appeal. In this judgment, we unanimously find that the real issue that the SNDF should have considered, the two boards should have considered, is first whether or not Section 59(3) of the Defence Force Act had been triggered. Because if Section 59(3) had not been triggered, then Mr. Mamasedi should have been allowed to continue. But what had happened was that the Defence Force applied Section 59(3) and regarded Mr. Mamasedi as having been discharged. And the discharge in terms of Section 59(3) is the one that occurs by operation of law. In order to determine whether Section 59(3) was triggered, it would have been necessary for the National Defence Force and the two boards to ask the question whether or not it could be said that Mr. Mamasedi had absented himself for a period exceeding 30 days without his commanding officer's permission. And that question would raise another question, namely, what is meant by 30 days? Is it 30 calendar days, or is it 30 working days, business days? Is it 30 days on which Mr. Mamasedi was obliged to be on duty, or does it include days on which he was not obliged to be on duty? Before us Mr. Mama said, and before the High Court and the Supreme Court of Appeal, in this last round of litigation, made it quite clear in his papers, and this was not disputed, that he did not work Saturdays and Sundays and public holidays, and only worked from Monday to Friday. He pointed out that if that was taken into account, then he had not exceeded 30 days contemplated in section 59.3 in his absence, and therefore section 59.3 had not been triggered. The SNDF argued that the reference to 30 days in section 59.3 has nothing to do whether a member was obliged to be at work or not. And what it required, what it contemplated, was 30 calendar days, irrespective of whether on any one or more of those days a member was obliged to be on duty. This was the conclusion, this had been the conclusion of the High Court as well, namely upholding the point, the proposition that section 59.3 was not confined to days on which a member was obliged to be at work. In this court, we have come to the conclusion that upon a proper interpretation of section 59.3, the reference to 30 days is a reference to only those days on which a member is obliged to work. We have come to the conclusion that the interpretation advanced by the SNDF, that 30 days includes days on which a member is not obliged to work, would lead to a situation where a member of the regular force is dismissed by operation of law for not going to work or not coming to work on a day when he's not supposed to be at work anyway. And that is an interpretation that is untenable given the wording of the Act, of the section 39(2) of the Constitution, and the purpose of the section. In this regard, we point out in this judgment that there are clear indications in the provision that the absence that is the subject of the provision is the absence from duty, absence from official duty, and that it is clear that the section contemplates consequences for misconduct, because it clearly says that a member of the regular force who absents himself as contemplated in the section will be regarded as having been dismissed or discharged on account of misconduct. And the discharge cannot be on account of misconduct if the member was not at work on a day when he was not supposed to work, because that is not misconduct. This conclusion leads us to the further conclusion that section 59.3 was therefore not triggered, and therefore there was no basis for Mr. Mamasedi to have been regarded as dismissed or discharged when he turned up for work on the 3rd of January. This may not mean that the Defence Force had no other avenue to deal with his absence. It obviously would have had another avenue to deal with his absence. But the avenue that it chose is one that has, in the opinion of this court, no legal basis under Section 59(3). This means that Mr. Mamasedi has never been dismissed from the regular force of the SANDF, and has throughout remained a member of the regular force. Since he has never been dismissed, an order of reinstatement would not be competent. He remains a member of the regular force. What it does mean is that the South African National Defence Force has simply not paid him for all of this time, since 2011. And that he has, by fighting his case the way he has fought it, 2 times going to the High Court, 2 times going to the Supreme Court of Appeal, and ultimately coming to this court, he has continued to make himself available to continue in his position. It is simply the SANDF which has refused him the opportunity to continue in the regular force. Therefore, the SANDF will have to pay him his remuneration for the time that he continued to make himself available, and they refused to allow him. Furthermore, in terms of costs, they will also have to pay costs. So in the result, the order we make is the following. Leave to appeal is granted. That is 1. 2, the appeal against the decision of the High Court refusing to declare that Saturdays, Sundays, and public holidays were not to be included in calculating the 30 days referred to in Section 59(3) of the Defence Act, where a member of the Defence Force was not obliged to work on those days, is upheld. 3, the respondents are ordered to pay the applicant's costs in this court and in the Supreme Court of Appeal, jointly and severally, the one paying the other to be absolved, including the cost of 2 counsel, where 2 counsel were employed. The High Court's failure or refusal, that is 4, to A, declare that the reference to 30 days in Section 59 or 59(3) of the Defence Act 2002 did not include days on which a member of the regular force was not obliged to work. B, to declare that the applicant was not to be regarded as dismissed or discharged as contemplated in Section 59(3) of the Defence Act 2002. And C, to order the payment of the applicant's arrear remuneration since 3 January 2012 is hereby reviewed, set aside, and replaced with the following. 1, it is declared that the reference to 30 days referred to in Section 59(3) of the Defence Act is a reference to those days on which a member of the regular force is obliged to be on official duty. Roman figure 2, it is declared that for the period 3 January 2012 To date, the applicant has been and continues to be a member of the regular force of the South African National Defence Force. Roman figure 3, the respondent's conduct in regarding the applicant since 3 January 2012 as having been dismissed or discharged was unlawful. The applicant must report for duty within 7 calendar days from the date of the handing down of this judgment, or at the latest within 7 days after the payment to him of his arrear remuneration in terms of this order. Roman figure 4, the first, second, and or third respondent's refusal to or failure to pay the applicant his remuneration and other benefits since January 2012 to date is unlawful. 5, the applicant is entitled to payment of his remuneration for the period 3 January 2012 to the date of the handing down of this judgment. 6, the respondents are ordered, jointly and severally, to take all such steps as may be necessary to ensure that the applicant is paid his remuneration for the period 3 January 2012 to the date of the handing down of this judgment within 30 calendar days from the date of the handing down of this judgment. 7, the respondents are to pay the applicant's costs, including the cost of 2 counsel, where 2 counsel were enclosed, closed quotes. That is the order that the High Court should have made, which is being made by this court. 5, for the avoidance of doubt, the words from the date of the handing down of this judgment in 4 Roman figure 6 above shall be deemed to refer to the date of the handing down of this court's judgment. I hand down the judgment. Yeah. I will take it that counsel who are sitting very far from the podium are saying as the court pleases. I will now hand over, or before I say that, this was the last judgment I'm handing down myself. I will now hand over to the Deputy Chief Justice.
Thank you, my brother. Our special guest of honor, Chief Justice Zondo, the Chief Justice of the Republic of South Africa, Mrs. Zondo, and the entire Zondo family, His Excellency President Mbeki, former President of the Republic of South Africa, and Mrs. Mbeki, Honorable Didiza MP, Speaker of the National Assembly of the Republic of South Africa, Honorable Simelane MP, Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Honorable Nell MP, Deputy Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Justices of the Constitutional Court and of the Supreme Court of Appeal, Judges President, Deputy Judges President, and judges present here today, retired Chief Justice Mogoeng and Mrs. Mogoeng, retired Deputy Chief Justice Museneke, retired Justices of the Constitutional Court, retired judges, Regional Court Presidents and Chief Magistrates, heads of Chapter 9 institutions, the Reverend Archbishop Megoba, representatives of the legal profession, members of the public following these proceedings via virtual platforms, members of the media in attendance, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We just concluded the first part of the proceedings and now begin the special sitting during which tributes will be paid to Chief Justice Zondo. On behalf of the South African judiciary, it is my honor to welcome you all to this special court sitting, which marks the retirement of Chief Justice Raymond Mnyamezeli. His career began in 1997 upon his appointment as a judge of the Labour Court, following a short stint as the first chairman of the governing body of the Commission for the Conciliation, Mediation and Arbitration. He would later ascend to the position of Judge President of the Labour Appeal Court and Labour Court, where he soon showed his mettle and would make what many of us believe his swan song, his last judgment as a judge that he just delivered now, bears his capacity as the Deputy Chief Justice and Chief Justice. He headed both this court and the entire judiciary. He also chaired important bodies within the judiciary, notably the Judicial Service Commission, which is a constitutional body responsible for judicial appointments, the South African Judicial Education Institute Council, which is a statutory body established to promote, amongst other things, the accessibility and effectiveness of the courts through continuing judicial education, and the National Efficiency Enhancement Committee, which is a high-level judicial governance stakeholder forum established to ensure the efficiency and effectiveness of the justice system. As can be expected, the role of Chief Justice is most challenging and demanding. This is particularly so in a developing constitutional democracy such as ours, with a myriad challenges with which we are all familiar. In addition to the usual qualities required of a judge, integrity, intelligence, impartiality, humility, empathy, and unwavering resolve and focus on protecting the Constitution and the rule of law, among many others, the position requires one with firm leadership and management skills. Chief Justice Zondo consistently proved that he possesses these qualities and many more. During his long tenure in judicial leadership, 17 years now, he played an important role in the crafting of a clear roadmap for a transformed, diverse judiciary that prioritizes the efficient, accessible, and transparent delivery of justice to all the citizens of South Africa. And his significant contributions extended beyond his judicial role from the early days of democracy. He served in 2 committees of the Commission of Inquiry regarding the prevention of public violence and intimidation, better known as the Goldstone Commission in the early 90s. In recent years, he chaired the Critical Commission into allegations of state capture, corruption, and fraud in the public sector, including organs of state, better known as the State Capture Commission. And notably, a number of the recommendations made by that commission were accepted by the President. Under his leadership, Chief Justice Zondo actively promoted gender transformation in the judiciary. During his brief tenure as the chairperson of the Judicial Service Commission, he supported the appointment of more women to the bench and the elevation of women judges to leadership positions within the institution, and those women including me. He did not stop there and also promoted mentorship and training programs aimed at advancing and empowering female judges and lawyers. Recently, the South African Judicial Education Institute, under his stewardship, resuscitated a highly successful program that was originally conceived by the South African chapter of the International Association of Women Judges and former Minister of Justice, Minister Bridget Mabandla. The Aspirant Women Judges Program, now aptly renamed the Bridget Mabandla Aspirant Women Judges Program. This important program, which was unfortunately neglected and allowed to die after Mayor Mabandla left the Justice Ministry, is aimed at enhancing women's representation within the judiciary by providing a platform for aspiring female judges to develop their skills and expertise. Chief Justice Zondo heard the cry to bring it back, to assist in the quest to achieve gender equality. but that does not surprise those who know him. He is one of the first judges president to make a real effort to bring women into the judiciary by inviting them to act as judges and get permanent appointment in the courts they headed. The Organization of Women Judges and Magistrates, the South African chapter of the International Association of Women Judges, has greatly benefited from his consistent, generous support, encouragement, and visible endorsement of its initiatives and programs which aim at the protection and promotion of the rights of women and girls. These contributions all demonstrate Chief Justice Zondo's strong commitment to upholding the rule of law, advancing social justice, and protecting human rights for the betterment of our society. And they are only highlights of what this remarkable South African has done to show for his life. We are sad to bid you farewell, Chief Justice. Your departure will leave a profound void in the judiciary and will be deeply felt by all of us who have had the privilege of working closely with you. We will miss you. But as the old African adage goes, we meet to part, and now we must let you go home to your dear wife and children, whom we owe a huge debt of gratitude for so generously sharing their precious.
In order to save time, I'm just going to say all protocols observed.
Is your mic on?
Yes, it's on.
Oh, right.
It's on,
Struggling
yes.
a bit to hear.
Okay, we apologize. It's both an honor and a profound privilege to address you today on behalf of Advocates for Transformation as we gather to mark the retirement of the towering figure in our judicial system, Chief Justice Raymond Zondo. Today we bid farewell to a leader whose name has become synonymous with integrity, courage, and an unwavering commitment to justice. Chief Justice Zondo's career has been nothing short of monumental. When he first donned the robes of a judge, he embarked on a journey that would see him become one of the most influential jurists in South African history. His tenure has been marked by a series of landmark decisions that have not only upheld the rule of law, but also has been instrumental in shaping the very fabric of our democratic society. Chief Justice Zondo's journey to the pinnacle of South African judiciary is a profound and inspiring tale of resilience and unwavering commitment. Born into humble circumstances, he confronted the immense challenge of balancing his professional dreams with a deep responsibility of providing for his family. His rise from these modest beginnings to becoming Chief Justice is not just a career milestone, but also testament to his incredible perseverance and steadfast dedication. A particular poignant illustration of his resilience emerged during his interview for Deputy Chief Justice. As a young man after completing matric, Chief Justice Zondo was filled with hope for his future, yet faced severe economic hardship at home. His mother, who had been unable to work and had exhausted all her savings, could only manage a meager income from knitting and selling jerseys. Despite these hardships, Justice Zondo was determined to pursue his law degree. He knew that achieving his dreams meant ensuring his family's well-being as well. In an extraordinary display of resolve and ingenuity, he sought help from a businessman. Although the businessman could not offer direct financial assistance, he provided a grocery voucher, allowing Chief Justice Zondo's mother to buy essential groceries each month. This simple yet profound gesture was a lifeline, enabling Chief Justice Zondo to focus on his studies with the assurance that his family was cared for. This act of kindness was not just a moment of relief, but a powerful testament of Chief Justice Zondo's character. It reflects his unshakable determination to overcome adversity and his unwavering commitment to both his family and his dreams. His journey is a powerful reminder that with resilience, compassion, and determination, one can rise above the most challenging circumstances and achieve greatness. Advocates for Transformation has long championed a legal profession that reflects the diverse experience and backgrounds of our society. Chief Justice Zondo's own experience highlights a crucial aspect of this transformation. The understanding that the path to success is often fraught with difficulties that test one's resolve and commitment. His life story aligns with our submissions that transformation in the legal profession must must not only be about diversity in representation, but about recognizing and addressing the personal and systematic challenges faced by those who aspire to serve with distinction. Furthermore, during Chief Justice Zondo's term at the Labour Court, significant strides were made to advance racial and gender transformation, particularly in the Labour Appeal Court. As Judge President of the Labour Appeal Court and the Labour Court, Chief Justice Zondo prioritized providing numerous acting opportunities to women, many of whom have since been elevated to the Supreme Court of Appeal and the Constitutional Court. His tenure was marked by a concerted effort to ensure serious racial and gender transformation within the Labour Court, reflecting his commitment to an inclusive and representative judiciary. A particular moving chapter in his legacy is the reintroduction of the Aspirant Women Judges Program in 2023. Originally initiated by former Minister Mabandla, this program was revitalized by Chief Justice Zondo to fast-track the training of women judges and magistrates. Naming it the Bridget Mabandla Aspirant Women Judges Program in honor of former Minister Mabandla was a poignant tribute that underscores his commitment to gender transformation within the judiciary. Last year, this program saw many aspiring women judges participate, and on the 5th of August this year, Chief Justice Zondo launched the 2024 program with about 20 candidates currently benefiting from this vital initiative. As the chair of the Commission of Inquiry into allegations of state capture, Chief Justice Zondo stood as a beacon of transparency and accountability. His relentless pursuit of truth and justice in the face of immense challenges has reinforced the public's faith in our institutions. He has demonstrated through his actions that the rule of law is not a mere ideal, but a living, breathing commitment to which we must all adhere. Chief Justice Zondo's legacy is also deeply intertwined with his commitment to transformation within the legal profession. He has championed diversity and inclusion, understanding that the judiciary, reflective of our nation's rich tapestry, is essential for justice to be truly served. His leadership has inspired a new generation of legal professionals to engage with the law not only as practitioners, but as agents of change. His tenure was marked by an unwavering commitment to fairness, even when faced with contentious issues. He has exemplified what it means to serve with dignity, guided by the principles that transcends personal and political bias. His judicious application of the law and his incisive legal reasoning has earned him the respect not only from those within the legal community, but from all the corners of our nation and the region. As we celebrate Chief Justice Zondo's retirement, we also acknowledge the legacy he leaves behind, a legacy built on the bedrock of justice, integrity, and transformation. His contributions have shaped not only the legal landscape of our country, but also the moral compass by which we measure our progress as a society. Chief Justice, as you step down from the bench, we express our greatest and deep gratitude for your service. Your impact has been profound, and your example will continue to guide us as we strive to build a more just and equitable society. In closing, let us remember that the strength of our democracy lies not only in the words inscribed in our Constitution, but in the steadfast commitment of individuals like Chief Justice Zondo. As we honor your retirement today, we also reaffirm our collective commitment to the values you have so tirelessly championed. Thank you, Chief Justice Zondo, for your extraordinary service, for inspiring us all. May your retirement be as fulfilling as your distinguished career has been exemplary. Thank you. Lastly, as advocates for transformation, Mr. Jacobs and I and the rest of AFT look forward to hosting you next weekend. Thank you.
Okay, now we call upon the President of the Black Lawyers Association, Mr. Mvundlela.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chief Justice, Chief Justice, all justices of this court, former President Mbeki, and all the retired justices. Let me stand on the protocol that was observed by my previous colleague and also the Deputy Chief Justice. It gives us a great pleasure to find ourselves addressing you after you have spoken, Deputy Chief Justice. It's not a common thing. When we come to this court, we speak first and then you ask questions. So the opposite now being the case, you start to wonder whether we're going to be wishy-washy because you have said all the better things. And we must then keep quiet and clap hands and go home. But let me take this opportunity to thank you for giving us an opportunity to come and share in the moment of magnanimous magnitude, which cannot be equated to any other thing, Chief Justice Zondo. In my 20 years of practice, this is the first that we are sitting here as the BLA saying, go well, Chief Justice. For those that we couldn't do so, it would not have been because we couldn't do it, but it probably may have been because of many other reasons related thereto. We greet you today on behalf of the NEC of the BLA. And like I said, today marks one of those opportunities where an ordinary citizen addresses the leaders of government, from the executive as led by the capable Minister of Justice, and Parliament as led by the Speaker on my side. You can imagine how scary that is. And lastly, the judiciary, particularly as led by yourselves. I have appeared so many times before your colleagues behind you, the JPs of all the other provinces. And for that guidance, they have given us the ability to be able to come to this court and stand proudly to say we have come to bid farewell to one of our own. The BLA can easily claim that the Chief Justice has risen amongst the ranks, throughout the ranks, and has represented what it means to be born poor. We tell you now that in our understanding, we have learned one particular thing out of you, that you did not want to be defined by where you were born and who gave birth to you, and their inability to be able to have the financial muscle to take you to many other better institutions that they could have taken you to. We have heard yesterday that you have studied at the University of Zululand. In 1981, I think in my recollection is correct, KZN was still part of the general notion of what TBVCs looked like, and some of them were being established at that time. And I think very well that those kind of institutions were generally established for the black people. It was not established for everyone. But you saw the need to go to that institution and did not want it to define you. You did not want to characterize where and how you would want to end there. You wanted something much bigger, and you did not only want it for yourself, but you believed that it would be in the best interest of everyone, as time would determine that democracy shall then come 10 years later, or 12, 13 years later, since 1981 to 1993. And in 1994, when we voted, I'm sure you ululated a little more than all the others, because at the time of voting, you were educated enough to even appreciate what is the value of that vote. Therefore, for that, we believe that your participation could not have been taken for granted. It also marks a special moment in the history of this country. As we do so, bidding you farewell, we do so appreciating the fact that you have ran a race that a lot of us can only dream about. You have made your mark. You have chosen the space, as I said last week in the SCA, that all of you sitting in front of us and those behind me as magistrates, you have chosen the space for the brave. You have chosen the space to be able to tell anybody where to stop without even hinkering. You have chosen to tell us how to relate and how to behave. And for that, we owe you sincere gratitude. And as the judiciary, we urge you to continue doing the same thing, even post the presence of the CJ Zondo as he leaves all of you. Unfortunately, DCJ, I'm not very sure if we should be saying we are marking your exit to this court with a pinch of salt. I submit that we should be able to say, now you are going to have time to come and teach us. And it is important that you keep that promise. At least you made it to me, I can disclose it. So please be available to teach all the other young practitioners that have to come after us. We have had the opportunity to learn from you. Those that you are going to teach must come and appear before the colleagues that you leave on the bench, and they must be able to uphold the standards of these courts and the standard of every other court where they appear. So let us be able to celebrate your life, understanding how much you have been able to contribute to this whole narrative about the judiciary being the cornerstone of our democracy. You have answered all the questions honestly and truthfully at every other time that I saw you appear on every other interview. In our understanding, you got identified by your peers. You did not necessarily ambitiously wish to be where you are. I would refuse a narrative that says that you raised your hand because you thought you are better than everyone. I believe that others identified you and you accepted that they identified you. And with that, we urge you to continue being humble and being able to be guided where you are. We are proud that at 64 you are retiring. You are not at 70 where you tell us you won't be able to come. Post the first 12 months, DCJ. Post the first 12 months, DCJ, we expect him to come and teach at the Justice College. We don't expect him to sit at home and say, I'm still on retirement. That 12 months you talked about yesterday, it's something we must hold you to. Your elevation to this court, post your participation in the Labour Court and the High Court in Pretoria and everywhere else where you led, was just a true reflection of the fact that you were meant to come in and add value, and value you added. We have seen how best you put in place the Constitution, and you interpreted it in a manner that helped the ordinary man on the street understand what you meant. In the two judgments that I find very persuasive, and without suggesting that any other judgments were not, in the two judgments about the Rachivumo Rambuda and others and versus Chief Vumo royal family and the Mpepura Mabulana matter, you have actually showed that our constitution is for the people and the people are not for that constitution. So let us all every day sing that song and make sure that we uphold people's rights in the manner that respects their culture and uphold their culture within the ambit of the Constitution. You showed that you are grounded, and for that we respect you. As a leader of the judiciary, you showed more mettle, more humaneness, humble character, and understanding when leading the JSC. Your decision to ensure that the kind of panel that people appeared before when they are being interviewed for the judge's position, your changes that you brought there are things that we must celebrate. The most dangerous thing we can do is to allow the JSC to deteriorate, because people will no longer want to come there. And when people don't come there, we'll run out of the justices and judges in the country, and we cannot afford to do that. Lastly, and in conclusion, you leave the judiciary in good space. You are leaving it in good hands. The person on your right hand, on my left, has been appointed correctly to lead this court and the judiciary. And for all that she has already told us she learned from you, we believe that she's going to take the battle for transformation much more further than we could look at it. And with that said, the BLA say, go and rest, old man, You have done your part. You have indeed done your part. You have run a race. You have made your mark in the sand, and nobody's going to actually erase it. And all the judgments that we have written will forever guide how we want to interpret the Constitution. May you have a beautiful day and a beautiful life, fella. Thank you.
May I invite President of the National Association of Democratic Lawyers.
Deputy Chief Justice, allow me to say, as it has been said, inqanga nentsiba zayo. Kodwa ke ngengekahleli Nkosi yami ndiyibona ikhona. Dlamini zizwe. It is both a privilege and a pleasure to stand before you this afternoon as we gather to celebrate the remarkable individual, Chief Justice Zondo. When I ask what I know, my response remains simple. What I know, I don't remember. That is the bottom line. I can almost hear you urging me, Chief Justice, to elaborate. Come on, Mr. Nakis. You must know something. Yet, I assure you, the essence of my answer remains unchanged. Just this past Sunday, I visited my hometown of Kumbu in the Eastern Cape, where I had the pleasure of meeting the family of a dear friend. During my visit, I spoke with his son, a grade 9 student, named, coincidentally, Mnyamezile Raymond Mfungula. I inquired about his studies, and he said that he aspires to be Chief Justice Zondo. I inquired about what inspired this ambition. He candidly expressed his admiration of you whenever you appear on television. This moment underscored two significant insights for me. First, you have indeed lived up to your name, Mnyamezile. And second, your humility has left a lasting impression on those around you. I want you to know that this message reflects the administration I hold of you personally. It was great pleasure and profound respect that I address you on this momentous occasion, bidding farewell to Chief Justice Zondo, a figure of immense talent, dedication, humility, and passion. Is undeniable, challenging. Our judiciary and our country require more individuals of your caliber. And I believe we should collectively oppose its retirement. I am certain that your esteemed colleagues around you share this sentiment and agree with me. I will brief Advocate Ngubatobi to draft papers on this regard. Chief Justice Zondo joined the profession during turbulent times. As an attorney, he faced a restriction that prevented him from appearing in high courts, and as a black practitioner, he was often excluded from government work. Such conditions could have thwarted the careers of many practitioners. But Chief Justice Zondo was undeterred by these injustices. The nature of cases referred to the office where you completed your articles prepared you to be a constitutional lawyer and a judge. Your early career experiences instill in you a profound sense of justice and fairness. Working along Mrs. Victoria Mklenge, a human rights lawyer who fought fearlessly against apartheid and injustice, must have been an unforgettable experience that shaped the Chief Justice Zondo we know today. You set a precedent by finding that the principles of the audi alteram partem rule apply in labor law and must be observed even in cases of dismissal and strikes. In due course, this confirmed the right to procedural fairness for unprotected striking workers. All the judgments I've read by Chief Justice Zondo affirm, first, that he is a human rights lawyer, and second, that he believes in upholding the rights and values enshrined in our Constitution. His determination ultimately led him to become the Chief Justice of South Africa. He was not a Chief Justice. He was a prolific legal writer and thinker. Chief Justice Zondo, you are among the brilliant legal minds to have emerged from our nation. Your prolific contribution to legal scholarship are evident, with over 200 reported judgments that have significantly shaped our jurisprudence, enshrined our legal system, and established crucial precedents. Your dedication has illuminated the path for many, serving as a source of inspiration for those who seek justice. You have steadfastly been a pillar upon which the edifice of our justice stands firm and resilient, laying the ground for future generations with unwavering commitment. Chief Justice Zondo, you have exemplified what it means to be a role model and a jurist, guiding South Africa's legal landscape with respect, honor, and dignity. You have resisted the allure of personal gain and self-interest, adhering steadfastly to your oath of office to adjudicate disputes without fear, favor, or prejudice. As chair of the State Commission, you bore witnesses to the pain inflicted by those who sought to batter our nation for temporal gain, and you address this with integrity. This character has enabled you to interact with everyone with respect and dignity. Few would have been able to withstand the attacks levied against you during your tenure as chairperson of the State Capture Commission. You faced considerable opposition for the work of the commission and were given various names, one of which immediately comes to my mind is Barry White. Barry White was a legendary king of smooth, renowned for his deep velvet voice and iconic disco and funk music hits. He has remained popular to this day, inspiring new generation of musicians and artists alike. This is true of Chief Justice Zondo. You are leaving a legacy that will inspire countless generations in the legal profession and judiciary. Your story, Chief Justice, as said during your interviews, reveal a unique character, one that is humble, strong, and exemplary. You have shaped your journey with patience and resilience, qualities that have molded you into a distinguished lawyer and a judge. The legacy you are leaving recognizes the importance of creating an equitable, efficient, and just legal system that serves the interests of all citizens with higher standards of integrity and professionalism. Your sense of justice and fairness is undoubtedly interlinked with your humble beginnings as a child of a working-class family. Your father as a laborer and your mother as a nurse aide, you quickly came to understand the exploitation and suffering of workers. It is no surprise as a lawyer you pursued the struggle for workers' rights, acting as their legal representative and architect of labor laws. Chief Justice Zondo has never deviated from his early teachings. Being born into an underprivileged background never defied him, nor changed his destiny and resolve. He defied the odds and progressed to become one of the top justices of South Africa's apex court, a milestone we should all celebrate, especially the black community. Your story, Chief Justice Zondo, as said during your interviews, revealed a character that is humble. Chief Justice Zondo made a remarkable statement during his interviews for the position of Chief Justice, and I could not resist to quote this, and I do. Quote, I think that a Chief Justice in a country such as ours should be somebody of integrity who can provide intellectual leadership, who has a demonstrable track record as a judge, somebody who is able to work with people and is able to appreciate the contribution of other leaders of the judiciary. Unquote. Having worked with Chief Justice, by the way, I appointed you twice as a Deputy Chief Justice and a Chief Justice. Having worked with Chief Justice Zondo at the Judicial Service Commission, I can confirm that he never assumed the views of the collective. He listened to all commissioners' perspectives, not substituting their views for his own. He is a consultative, valuing the contribution of each and every member of his collective. Chief Justice Zondo has always resisted the temptation to believe that his views are more important than others. He understands, as a revolutionary and a worker, a representative, that his views are only significant if they resonate with those of others. I'm certain that when you reflect on your humble beginning and underprivileged background, you never predicted you would become a lawyer and a pivotal member of the team that laid the groundwork for the Labor Relations Act, along with all the progress you have made with the legal profession and the judiciary. Punyameze, you have truly excelled in the state capture. Your understanding of your oath of office became increasingly apparent during the commission as you presided over a highly charged political inquiry. The contempt of court proceedings against the former president stand as a statement to your commitment. The contempt of court proceedings against the former president stand as a profound testament to courage and commitment as a judicial leader in South Africa. This is a significant moment in our legal history, showcase not only your unwavering resolve to uphold the rule of law, but also your steadfast dedication to justice, irrespective of political pressures or public opinions. Your actions served as a reminder that no individual, regardless of their positions, is above the law. It took extraordinary bravery to confront such a formidable figure, and your decision has paved the way for a stronger and more independent judiciary. For that, we'll always admire and cherish the legacy of Chief Justice Zondo. Chief Justice Zondo, you have worked tirelessly for the betterment of South Africa, standing firm amidst the challenges and adversities that have faced our nation. Your leadership has inspired countless individuals, and we, the witnesses to your leadership, the witnesses to your leadership, remarkably journey, have observed your profound impact on your legal landscape. It is indeed time for you to rest. We harbor no doubts about your intentions or legacy. Your retirement is well-deserved, and it marks the closing of an important chapter in our judiciary. I, together with the members of the National Association of Democratic Lawyers, NADEL, wish you well as you embark on this new chapter of your life. The legal profession will always remain indebted to you for your unwavering service and exemplary leadership. Your legacy of integrity, courage, and dedication to justice will never be erased. As you leave your post, know that you carry with you not only the gratitude of those you have served, but also the profound respect of all who have had the honor of witnessing your profound contributions to the law and the society. Today, we celebrate your remarkable contributions and profound impact you have made on our society. I know as your sister on the left takes over, she understands. But knowing her, she will take where you have left. It is on this basis that we say, thank you, Chief Justice Zondo, for your incredible service. Your mark on South Africa will continue to inspire generations to come. Siyabulela Mthiyane, Sokhulu, Sohlaza, Sikhangane esakha ngamadoda, Ndaba, Sobotshana, Luvuno, Koboga, Mzwili, Ivumela, Ivumela.
It was a beautiful tribute, Mr. Nodjesu, but you far exceeded your 5 minutes. May I call upon Ms. Masipa of the Law Society of South Africa to step forward.
Chief Justice, Deputy Chief Justice Baya, His Excellency Thabo Mbeki, also just allow me to stand on the protocol that has already been observed by the speakers before me. Chief Justice, it is with profound gratitude and respect that we gather here today to honor the retirement of a towering figure. Today, we not only bid farewell to an esteemed jurist, but we also celebrate a career that has left an edible mark on the fabric of our nation's legal landscape. For decades, Chief Justice Zondo has been at the forefront of our judiciary, navigating through some of the most challenging and complex issues our country has faced. His journey from a humble background to the pinnacle of the legal profession is nothing short of inspiring. His life and career are a testament of the transformative power and hard work and dedication, as well as his unwavering commitment to justice. Chief Justice Zondo's career has been characterized by an exceptional ability to blend legal precision with an acute awareness of the social and political realities that shape our nation, And I think this made much more sense as you narrated the story of how you ultimately managed to register your degree and ultimately how you became a legal practitioner. So your humble beginnings are really shown in how you have executed your duties, Chief Justice. This combination of attributes has earned him not only the respect of his peers, but also the trust of the public, who have looked to him as a guardian of our Constitution and a protector of our democracy. As we reflect on your tenure, Chief Justice, it is not impossible not to mention the significant role that you played in the Zondo Commission. This was not just the legal inquiry, Chief Justice. It was a moment of reckoning for our country. The Commission, under your leadership, Chief Justice, became a beacon of hope for many South Africans who had lost faith in the institutions that are meant to serve them. Through meticulous and fearless inquiry, the Chief Justice exposed the depth of corruption and maladministration that had taken the root cause of our state. And in so doing, he reminded us all of the critical importance of transparency, accountability, and upholding the rule of law. But his legacy is not only defined by this alone. Over the years, Chief Justice Zondo has delivered countless judgments that have shaped the evolution of our legal system. His contribution to labor law, human rights, as well as constitutional law have been profound. His judgments are not only legally sound, but are also infused with a deep sense of fairness and humanity. In your court, Chief Justice, the law has never been an abstract concept, but a living instrument meant to serve the people and uphold their dignity. In his role as the Chief Justice, he led the judiciary with a steady hand, ensuring that it remained independent and strong, even in the face of immense pressure. His leadership has been a stabilizing force during times of uncertainty, and your commitment, Chief Justice, to the principle of justice has been unwavering. And as you retire, CJ, we are reminded of the words of the great legal philosopher, Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr., who said, "The life of the law has not been logic, it has been experience." Chief Justice, your experience and wisdom and integrity have enriched our legal tradition and has strengthened our democracy. Your contributions will be felt for generations to come. But as we also celebrate your remarkable career, we must also recognize that the work has only just begun. The fight for justice, equality, and as well as the rule of law is ongoing, and it is now up to your successors and us as the legal practitioners to make sure that we carry the torch forward. CJ, as you step down from the bench today, we know that your voice and your wisdom will continue to be a guiding light for all of us. Your legacy will inspire future generations of jurists to uphold the values that you have so passionately defended throughout your career. We wish you all the best in this new chapter of your life. May it be filled with the peace and fulfillment that you so richly deserve after a lifetime of service to justice as well as our country. Thank you, Chief Justice.
Advocate Jacobs, SC of the General Counsel of the Bar.
Chief Justice, Deputy Chief Justice, as the pilots normally say, I'll be making up for some lost time. And I will do so by doing two things. Firstly, I'll be asking for leave to incorporate by reference the protocols. Secondly, I will also be requesting that my tribute to you, Chief Justice, be read in conjunction with what has been said by the previous speakers. So the General Counsel of the Bar of South Africa, the GCB, is not much given to handing out accolades. It only makes one award annually. In July 2022, Chief Justice, you were awarded the Lady Felicia and Sir Sidney Kentridge Award. The citation in support of your recommendation was endorsed by Sir Sidney. I quote one passage in that recommendation, which summarizes in a very limited way the person that you are and the contribution that you have made. The award itself is one which is hotly contested. And it says the following: the career path of this man from humble beginnings is not only an inspiration to many, but his accomplishments and his clear and unwavering commitment and dedication to the principles of the rule of law and equality before law renders him a worthy nomination for this prestigious award. In having this award bestowed upon you, Chief Justice, you joined other legal eagles and luminaries, including Chief Justice Jaskelson, Deputy Chief Justice Mohammed, Chief Justice Langa, and others. The list is not that long, but time does not permit me to go through the whole list. Chief Justice, you have truly answered the clarion call aptly stated by John F. Kennedy at his inaugural speech when he said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." Your contribution to society transcends the legal profession and the judiciary. Over a lifetime of service, you have touched the lives of the unseen and the forgotten, and have demonstrated the power of law to transform society. You have led the judiciary with distinction. Under your stewardship, the judiciary remains independent and the rule of law flourishes. It is a testament to your resoluteness, which came at great personal sacrifice. The use of the word stewardship, Chief Justice, is a deliberate choice. It is intended to signify a recognition of your contribution to the field of labor law. There too, as in the rest of the body of law, you leave a monument of jurisprudence. As the GCB and the organized legal profession, I anticipate that calls for your wisdom will be numerous after your retirement. As I'm winding down in my speech, and perhaps fortified by a newfound confidence, may I request that on this singular occasion to offer a word of advice to the wise. As you are about to join the ranks of formers, may I ask that you don't follow the words of former President Mandela. Upon his retirement, "Don't call me, I will call you." What remains for me to do is to say, Chief Justice, we salute you and we salute your contribution. Thank you.
I invite the representative of the Legal Practice Council. I see the name of Ms. Madolo. Oh, there she is, Ms. Madolo Dlepu.
Honorable Chief Justice Zondo, Honorable Deputy Chief Justice Maya, all the justices of this esteemed court, and retired justices, to the President Mbeki, Bishop Makoba, and Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, Metoko Didiza, Honorable Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, Mete Misimelane, all justices present. I'm trying to make time so that my speech should sound longer. On behalf of the Legal Practice Council, I'm honored to appear before this honorable court amongst my learned colleagues on this particular occasion, bidding farewell to a selfless lawyer, jurist, judge, Chief Justice, and highly esteemed son of the South African soil. Chief Justice Zondo, you spent your whole life fighting for the rights and dignity of the working class in our country and those South Africans who were easily susceptible to discrimination and marginalization. You have shaped South African labor law by contributing to key legislation such as the Labor Relations Act, a cornerstone in transforming the landscape of South African labor law in our current constitutional dispensation. The LRA created important protections for workers and the mechanisms such as the CCMA, which has been critical in keeping the industrial stability in our country, and your contribution to that really cannot be diminished. During your tenure as a judge president of the Labour Appeals Court, you delivered numerous impactful judgments. You have been known for your deep understanding of labor issues, which reflected your balanced approach to cases involving workers' rights and employers' obligations. You emphasized the importance of recognizing the rights of minority unions to participate in the workplace forums and strike action, reinforcing the principle of fair representation and protection of the workers' rights. A notable judgment that came to my mind is that of the Labour Appeals Court is the Modise and others versus Steve Spar Blackheath, where you settled a long-standing dispute regarding the procedural fairness of unprotected striking workers by affirming that the principle of audi alteram patrem applies to the labor law. In addition, you made sure to see that transformation of the Labor Court and the Labor Appeals Court. You proceeded as the Deputy Chief Justice to chair the most difficult commission, the Commission of Inquiry into the State Capture, relentlessly and with patience. You may have earned a few critics in the process, but rest assured that you have millions of South Africans thanking you and appreciating your gallant courage to be one to take on the duties and chairpersonship of the Commission. You may not know how you opened the eyes of the majority of South Africans. You upheld the rule of law when South Africa needed it. You accommodated your critics with respect. Your temperament and your patience and calmness showed how excellent a mediator you are, and those qualities are to be admired. To some of us, you are a champion who stood up and went to do what others were shy to do. You embodied the rule of law in all aspects, and you revived our hope for a better South Africa. By accepting the role of chairing the Commission, you displayed your character as a true visionary of not only the legal but the political landscape. You defended the judiciary amidst all the negative criticism, and rightfully so, when the judiciary was under attack. Our Constitution, whilst lauded as the best in the world, we still have a challenge of ensuring access to justice and ensuring empowerment of women legal practitioners. This can be done by introducing instruments like the long outstanding legal sector code to monitor the distribution of quality legal work to all female practitioners who are always overlooked by private sector and other organs of the state. One of the characteristics I admired most about you is your commitment to the empowerment of women in the profession. At the inaugural lecture of the late Victoria Mpange, held by the South African Women Lawyers Association, you delivered a moving and impactful tribute to your mentor, Mrs. Victoria Mpange, going as far to say, I could, she made you. This profound acknowledgement of influence your principal and mentor had on your career, which you embraced and continued in your support of women in the profession throughout the tenure as a legal practitioner and presiding officer. You volunteered your voice for the Woza Women's Law Awards, Women in Law Awards, highlighting the importance of recognizing outstanding women legal practitioners and reminding attendees that gender inequality continues to exist because men allow it to, even though many swear up and down that they don't. You have been so enthusiastic about seeing women entering into the profession. I recall at the launch of African Women in Law last year, I brought five young candidate attorneys, and you offered to take a picture with them. If you look at their phones, you are on the screenshot of their phones. That's how pride. They were only 2 weeks in practice, so that's how they admire you. I've been fortunate to have worked with you in the Judicial Services Commission, its litigation committee. Lastly, I have to be proud as your attorney. I have marveled on how meticulous and thoughtful you are. You always pay attention to detail, a fierce follower of rules, and the ability to remember something I said 6 months ago, which I had forgotten. As we welcome the first female Chief Justice incumbent, I'm confident that the legacy you will leave behind in this court will be carried through. On behalf of the Legal Practice Council, legal practitioners all over the country, we thank you. We thank you generously, your patience, your fierce protection of the rule of law and our Constitution. You have contributed to the future of our children. Now it's time to rest, and you must rest well. Thank you.
Advocate Baloyi Mehe, SC of the Pan-African Bar Association of South Africa.
Chief Justice, Deputy Chief Justice, allow me to stand on the protocol already observed. And also, allow me to please accept my submission that the Pan-African Bar Association of South Africa aligns itself with all the submissions that have been made. And in that score, I submit that there is a proper case made out for the Chief Justice to go on retirement. A meaningful life is not about being rich, being popular, being highly educated, or being perfect. It is about being real, being humble, being strong, and being able to share ourselves and touch the lives of others. I found this on Wikipedia by an unknown author, but I found it apt to quote in this occasion marking the retirement of Chief Justice Zondo, who served as an acting Chief Justice from the 11th of October 2021 and officially became Chief Justice of South Africa from the 1st of April 2022 to date. He is the 22nd Chief Justice of South Africa. Every one of the speakers that have spoken before me touched on the Chief Justice's contribution to our jurisprudence, to the Justice Department, to our law, and the upholding of our Constitution. I would like to, on behalf of PABASA, zoom into the Chief Justice, the human being, the man, the father, and the husband. And I will do this by going into 4 committees where Chief Justice served before he was Chief Justice. He served and contributed meaningfully as a member of the Ministerial Task Team, which was tasked with producing the Draft Labor Relations Bill, which was later subsequently passed as the Labor Relations Act. This goes to show that the Chief Justice is more for the men on the street. We know the history, we know our labor history, how the ordinary men on the streets, labor rights were trampled upon. And the Labor Relations Act brought some light to the ordinary laborers. He served in a committee that drew up a document to be used by the judiciary in dealing with complaints about racism and sexism within the judiciary. I know we still have a battle ahead of us, especially with these 2 animals, racism and sexism. There's still a lot to be done, but we also are grateful that the person succeeding you, Chief Justice, will not shy away from this task. And I can bravely say she is brave enough to take up the baton and fight this fight. The Chief Justice served in a committee established by the heads of court to organize the first and second conferences of judges in post-apartheid. We are still there. It is still a fight. The Chief Justice chaired a committee that looked into the use of official languages in courts. We all know that the use of a language is something that can be weaponized. I stand here, I do not know big words. I do not know big English. And if you find yourself in that situation, you most of the time find yourself at a disadvantage because language can be weaponized. We know where we come from when it comes to language. We know how language has been used in our courts to exclude most of us. But let me then go to the Chief Justice interview when he was being interviewed for the position of Deputy Chief Justice. I thought I would quote the whole passage. It's 4 minutes, but I can't because I don't trust myself that I'll be strong enough to go through the whole 4 minutes passage. But in essence, Chief Justice opened his world and shared with everyone, all South Africans that were watching that interview, that he is a human being and where he comes from. But what is important is he did not allow where he comes from to define him, to determine his destiny. Chief Justice, you did great. And behind those robes, there is a real human being. And as PABASA, we want to acknowledge that human being and say, we are glad to have been given an opportunity to interact with a human being, to learn to know the human being, to experience the human being, and most importantly, to have that human being sitting as a judge in those robes, giving humanity to the bench. We are grateful. As you step down from your duties as Chief Justice, we would like you to know that you leave behind a legacy of excellence, transparency, faithfulness to the Constitution of the Republic. Your efforts to transform not only the judiciary, but also the legal fraternity as a whole shall not go unnoticed. Yours was a unique era, Chief Justice, in that you were confronted with a mammoth task of presiding over the very first and hopefully the last State Capture Commission. A job you did without fear, favor, or prejudice. It is also during your tenure, and I know that there's already been submissions to that regard, that you revived the Female Aspirant Judges Program. We are grateful for that step. And we know that the incoming Chief Justice will continue with it. We urge you, Chief Justice, as you retire, to please enjoy your time with your family, friends, and loved ones, for you have given your all to your beloved country. We would also like to extend a word of appreciation to your family for having shared with us your time, your expertise, your legal mind, and contribution to the development of the jurisprudence in our country. We wish you a long life, health, and much happiness in future. Thank you.
And now I invite our National Director of Public Prosecutions, Ms. Batohi.
That's not a very good start. Chief Justice, Deputy Chief Justice, Justices, Deputy Minister, Minister, Deputy Minister, all protocol observed. I'm really honored to be speaking here today on behalf of the National Prosecuting Authority at this ceremonial sitting as Chief Justice Zondo ends a really important part in your life's journey, having made an indelible mark in the history and hopefully trajectory of our country as you begin a well-deserved retirement. Let me firstly say, Honorable Justices, like many of my other learned colleagues, the prosecution concurs with most of the submissions of my learned friends, except for one, which I will deal with later. Chief Justice Zondo, you have I think it's an unexpected connection to the National Prosecuting Authority without compromising your independence. The headquarters of the National Prosecuting Authority, as many of you might know, is the Victoria and Griffith Mxenge building, commonly known as the VGM. And as mentioned last night, Chief Justice worked with in the firm as an article clerk, which we understand was thanks to your perseverance because at the time, no vacancy existed. It was sadly a brief stint as Victoria Mxenge was assassinated shortly afterwards, but clearly that stint had a really important mark in terms of how your life unfolded. It was also sad that you never met her husband, Griffiths, who had also been assassinated earlier. But Victoria Mxenge put full trust in the young Zondo to run the labor law division of her firm based on the experience acquired at the Legal Resource Center. And so VGM, the Victoria and Griffith Mxenge building, the headquarters of the NPA, was so named for their dedication to the struggle for this country and for the fight for human rights of its people. being true lawyers for the people they were, as we in the NPA pride ourselves on being ourselves. I'd venture to say that most people find it difficult to find true, and I emphasize true, purpose in the gift of life, in living a life of meaning. Chief Justice, that is not the case for you. In your unwavering service to the nation, you devoted 4 of the last 6 years of your illustrious career that we've heard so much about last night and today to establishing and leading the demanding work of the State Capture Commission, which will always represent a watershed moment in the history of this country. The Zondo Commission, as it will forever be known, for laying bare the ravages of state capture. As a country, we came to truly understand that state capture was an orchestrated attack against our hard-fought democracy and economy, where a coterie of political and business elites undermined the state and its institutions for personal, political, and financial gain. As we all know, state capture not only devastated our economy and our development prospects, but more importantly, it ripped the heart out of the rule of law, the central ingredient of the social contract holding us together as a country. One of the more pernicious aspects of state capture is that it was an attack from the inside, a stealthy and lethal war waged on the rule of law, which we all hold dear, by the very people whose job it was and who swore an oath to protect and promote it, including the past leadership of the NPA. Not too long after I took office, Chief Justice, you made rather scathing remarks on the then NPA failing to respond to state capture. Our work was cut out. There was and remains no doubt about what the NPA and law enforcement more broadly needed to then and still needs to do to take the important work of the Commission forward. We need to ensure now justice and accountability, not just us, but all of those in the criminal justice system. We hear the calls for prosecutions, for orange overalls, which is constant. I must confess, Chief Justice, that in this regard, the Zondo Commission perhaps created unrealistic expectations, since the public tend to assume that matters before the Commission were ready for criminal trials, that the Commission present what many of people refer to as the blueprint for prosecutions. Yet, as we all know, criminal prosecutions, which has a much more onerous standard of proof and admissibility requirements, require a lot more patience, a lot more than you had, Chief Justice Zondo, and much more painstaking work to meet that required standard of proof. So having said that, the State Capture Commission certainly gave us a clear understanding of what is needed to be done and laid a solid foundation upon which to build. Today, Chief Justice, I can confidently say that we've heeded your remarks. We're starting to see the fruits of very conscientious and painstaking processes that we embarked on, I say with a fraction of the budget of the Commission, over the last 5 years, and I know that was still not enough for you, over the last 5 COVID-interrupted years to rebuild a fractured NPA and future-proof the NPA to mitigate against any future state capture attempts, and importantly, to strengthen the rule of law in our country. Chief Justice, you understood the importance of this and the need for critical institutional, constitutional entities like the National Prosecuting Authority to be functionally and operationally independent. You requested that we make submissions to the Commission on this aspect, which we did. We are working with the new minister and the department to hopefully introduce legislation to Parliament in the following year to deal with these issues. Chief Justice, I would like you to retire with the assurance that the real impact of the work of the Commission will be actually felt, that we will have those responsible for the devastation of state capture face justice. You will be pleased to know that there have been significant developments in strengthening our hand to do this. You certainly can't do it with your hands handcuffed behind your back. And the investigating directorate recently being made permanent with the support of both the previous minister and the current one is a really important step in that direction. In addition, I want to quickly mention that through the presidential initiative, we have successfully partnered with business sector, which will be setting up a state-of-the-art digital evidence unit that will be able to analyze data from digital devices, and which is potentially a game changer, ensuring that we are able to hold people accountable for state capture and its ravages. This will actually secure specialized skill that we require to supplement those of the prosecutions. In addition, Chief Justice, we did take heed of one of the state capture recommendations, and we have adopted a corporate alternate dispute resolution mechanism, which will strengthen the NPA's ability to deal with corporate corruption and recover stolen monies, which is a critical aspect of accountability and justice. Chief Justice, honorable justices, yes, the wheels of justice are turning, not as fast as we'd like to. But in order for this to happen, all functionaries in the criminal justice system have an important role to play, not only the prosecuting authority. Addressing state capture is a government priority. And as a third arm of government, one has to ask, what is the role of judiciary in implementing government priorities, but within its critical independent mandate? In order to cement your legacy, Chief Justice, in building on the foundation laid by the State Capture Commission, we do need the firm resolve of an independent judiciary to ensure that cases move swiftly through our court process, while I emphasize ensuring a fair trial, fair for the accused, but also for victims and witnesses. State capture-related corruption is not a victimless crime. Our country and its people are all victims. So things like a fast lane for state capture cases could actually help. Some tough case management perhaps is also needed once cases are enrolled. And again, I emphasize, without compromising on any fair trial rights. And this is where I have a different view from my learned colleague from the General Counsel of the Bar, in that the rule of law, I think, notwithstanding your efforts, Chief Justice, is sadly not flourishing. It is certainly out of the intensive care unit, but I don't think it's yet in good health. All functionaries in the criminal justice system have an important role to ensure that we nurse it back to health. In conclusion, Chief Justice, we recognize and appreciate your exemplary leadership, especially in the stark glare of the public spotlight at the helm of the Commission. You displayed the necessary courage to act decisively and with impeccable resolve, and at great personal sacrifice at times, when the authority of the Commission and the independence of the judiciary came under abusive attacks. On behalf of the NPA, Chief Justice Zondo, we thank you for your integrity, for working with a spirit of service and sacrifice, for your humbleness and for your kindness, which enjoin us all as prosecutors to be better lawyers for the people and to take many leaves from your book. We also thank you for enabling us as a country to understand the systemic nature of state capture and its devastation, whose impact we still feel today, so that we can take steps, whatever steps we need, to ensure that this happens never again. You may retire assured, Chief Justice, that we will not rest until the job is done. There will be justice and accountability. The reality is that impunity, unlike the past, is no longer a given. Those with dirty hands should not be sleeping easy at night. We have every confidence, Chief Justice, that Chief Justice Designate Maya will continue to run with the baton that you are now so gracefully passing on to her. Best wishes to you. We are indebted to you as a country. I thank you.
Invite the Honorable Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Ms. Simelane.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chief Justice, Program Director. Allow me to stand on the salutations and acknowledgements of all our esteemed justices that we have made earlier on. Of course, without making a call to be referred to the Ethics Committee of Parliament, allow me to salute the Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Toko Titiza. Our guest of honor, of course, outgoing Chief Justice. I'm not sure whether I must call you incoming Chief Justice or Chief Justice designate, but I will call you my sister, Sis Mandisa. President Mbeki, Mamzanele, the Arch, Bab Makhoba, Mama Makhoba ngiyabonga kakhulu. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Yesterday evening and this morning, I listened to glowing praises from friends, colleagues, as they describe our outgoing Chief Justice. All of these are deserved praises to a man who have given his best to our nation. One of your colleagues yesterday summed up your leadership. The judiciary was in the safe hands, that you were scholarly in how you approached your work. He went further to say you are calm, level-headed, and you never acted impulsively. I close quote. And for me, I think that's what sums up really the journey of 27 years and beyond, and what you have been experienced by your colleagues. And the person I'm quoting is smiling. All I am willing to say, in joining what Justice Malanga said yesterday, Titeto, Deoswanela. Yesterday, President Ramaphosa requested me to deliver a message of farewell to you on his behalf, not only as the President, but on behalf of all South Africans. And I would like to quote what he said, I must say, which I do believe I said it. But it is important that I repeat that you had made an extraordinary commitment. You were faithful to the Republic of South Africa and her people. You upheld and protected our Constitution. You helped entrenched human rights that are codified in our Constitution. But above all, you were full of confidence, and you also administered justice to all persons alike without fear, favor, or prejudice, which is aligned and it's in accordance with our Constitution. We thank you as a ministry again for your selfless and courageous service to the nation. And I can never thank you enough and your family for all the sacrifices that you have made in person and they've also made in allowing you to work in such a very demanding environment. And I'm saying this because in the history of South Africa, and I think your children will forever know, that it will always be divided in two parts, the pre-Zondo Commission and the post-Zondo Commission. We know what the pre-Zondo Commission chapter, it was a chapter that has been defined by colleagues, which had no accountability, and it had impunity. It is a chapter which had no consequences for the looting of state resources. But the second chapter, which you eloquently wrote, it is built on the findings and the recommendations from the Zondo Commission of the inquiry into the state capture. And this is a chapter we must commit today and beyond, that we must keep open to learn from every day of what should never be repeated. Most importantly, this is a chapter that should provide us as a toolkit on how to deal with corruption, malfeasance, and related tendencies. As you were delivering your last judgment,
this morning, I couldn't help but to wonder how much are we spending as a state on litigation. Litigation that could be avoided. And I'm saying, DM, I think we may have to find a way from state-owned enterprises, national, provincial government, 257 municipalities. If we could all sit and really be held accountable as well on how much we spend, which could have been saved of the public purse, we could deliver more service and more services. Without really committing DMNL, I do believe he has an additional delegation. As I conclude, Chief Justice, you hang your robes at the end of the month. We shall always be grateful of your commitment to enhance performance in the standard in the judiciary, and of course, speeding up of the delivery of judgments in our courts. I've worked with you for only a month. Chief Justice sends a message at 11 p.m., at 6:20, at 8:29, uzazupendule, Minister. We can assure, even this morning I have his message. We can assure you, Chief Justice, that the ideas you shared and the tasks that are still underway will continue. Advocate Patori did indicate that the President has signed and agreed, Sestogo, into the establishment permanently of the ID, and will be rolling out together with the NPA its full establishment in terms of human capital and ultimately on the work that they should be doing with investigative powers, particularly dedicated to the work of the state capture. And coupled with that is a meeting we had with the President on Wednesday last week, where we were firming up what Advocate Patori and business are committed into the digitization center that will be assisting on that hand as well. And I'm saying this hopeful that we should be able to showcase to the nation that the work you have done and the bravery you have shown for South Africans is not in vain. I'm not certain about the judge's retirement, but Siswam Stembil, I will try my level best to afford you the peace you never had in the past 27 years. But know that there will be a call or two, and very soon. As you bow out, we wish you the best, and I know you are looking forward to spending quality time with your family and Sis Tembil. But once again, we will never let your sacrifice to have been in vain. When we see you somewhere outside the courtroom, we will point and show anyone who doesn't know there is a man who did his job well. He served our nation well, with distinction, and he was not vainglorious. Hambi uphumule. Siyabonga.
Madam Speaker, Didiza of the National Assembly.
Order, honorable members. Umphathishlalo usekela jaji wenkantolo enkulu yesizwe yomthethosisekelo. Amajaji wonke amele indlu yeshamthetho kumbe umthethosisekelo welizwe. Amajaji abekulezi zihlalo zalendlu asethathe umhlala phansi, omongameli bezinkantolo zezifundazwe, o-Judge President abakhona bawo wonke ama-divisions ezwe lakithi, kanye nomongameli bezindlu zomthetho ophezulu, i-Supreme Court abakhona la, kanye nawo wonke amajaji akhona kanye nabo bonke abomthetho ngokwezigaba zokwahlukana abakhona kulendlu. Ngiphinde ngibingelele kumongameli wethu wangaphambili ubaba uMbeki noma Mbeki. Ngibingelele uBishop Makhoba kanye nodadewethu uMathaphelo. Ngibingelele izicukuthwane ezimenyiwe la ngesizulu bathi isinamva liyabukwa. Ngibingelele kuMthiyane, Sokhulu, Luvuno, Sokotshane, Ngoboka, Mnguni, Kamanekwane. Ngibingelele kuwe nkosikazi yasekhaya nabantwana nonke nowile abakhona la. Ngibingelele kumndeni kumbe abamele umndeni wakamXenge abakhona. Ngibingelele umzwa seNingizimu Afrika obukayo namhlanje kulesi sigaba esikuso lapho sithi siyabonga Mthiyane. I'm not saying you are retiring. This is a relay. We are passing the baton to our sister, Justice Maya. At 64, that's when you are at your prime age. That's when your mind and your wisdom is required. As it has been seen by your learned friends who are here among us, who are sitting on your table, about Justice Msenege and about Justice Mkhweng Nabanye. It shows that there's still a lot that you'll contribute to make us proud and feel that indeed we stand in the shoulders of the giants. Yesterday, when you responded at the dinner, you appreciated the song that was sung on your behalf, that you raised me up. And when I reflected on your response, I indeed agree, because I know that you stand indeed in the shoulders of many, some of whom who are departed. And at this moment, I want to take you back to the journey in KZN. For you to remember those workers you represented while you were at the Legal Resources Center in a communal center, commonly known as Diaconia in Durban. Many of those had no resources to represent themselves. Many of those relied on you and others to make their case. Many of them trusted you that you will indeed ensure that justice is served. I want to remind you of your time at Victoria Mxenge's as well as Mthembu attorneys. At that particular time when you served, when many were jailed for taking a stand against apartheid, you did not flinch, you did not fear. You did not look at how much it would cost for the clients to pay, but you wanted to ensure that justice is served. Many in KwaZulu-Natal and in South Africa today, your peers and the village Mamumazondi in the South Coast are smiling and saying, "You've made us proud." Umthiyane bathi awulilulazanga igama labo. The village gogos who saw you growing up, they are saying, until the end, you stood for the truth. Akukho esikusolayo. Kodwa ke isiZulu sithi akukho soka lingenasici. That yes, sometimes there may be in your journey certain things that you may not know how it might have affected others. I'm reminded of the marijuana judgment. Many of us wondered what has happened to Justice Zondo. Really? As a Minister of Agriculture at the time, I wondered how many trees should one count to say these marijuana trees is what can be called it will be for private use. But here you were. And I said, okay, this judgment, though I'm not quite agreeing with Justice Zondo, but it actually opens up an opportunity for us as a country to reflect on how we can use this gold and green gold for commercial purposes. So while the Justice Committee in Parliament was still counting what the trees would be, we decided as the Ministry of Agriculture to make a presentation that to actually make it easier, while we are grappling with this matter of counting the trees, why don't we just create an opportunity through the legislation which the Justice said we must provide to also allow for commercialization of hemp and cannabis. I'm not promoting cannabis, but there is industrial and medicinal use with which this tree can be utilized productively. And indeed, Chief Justice, today we have many farmers, particularly in those areas of Eastern Cape and Emangwaneni in KwaZulu-Natal, now planting hemp for commercial use. Again, enabled by the judgment that not all of us quite appreciated at the time. Isog akosoga lingenasi. But I want to say one of the things, Chief Justice, that made us reflect on the role of the Chief Justice in any society was the words that President Ramaphosa said when he announced your appointment. I wish to quote the words he used. He said, "The position of Chief Justice carries a great responsibility in our democracy. As the head of the judiciary, the Chief Justice is a guardian of our Constitution and the laws adopted by the freely elected representative of the people. The Chief Justice stands as the champion of the rights of all South Africans and bears responsibility for ensuring equal access to justice. I have every confidence that Justice Zondo will acquit himself with distinction in this position." We stand here, close quote, we stand here today to say, indeed, you have done so. Your peers and your colleagues in their presentations, they alluded to how you have executed your responsibility in accordance with what President framed as the role of Chief Justice in our country. I want to say, as Parliament, we are honored of having worked with you during your service as Chief Justice. Ladies and gentlemen, Chief Justice Zondo has made significant strides to vigorously protect the independence of the judiciary and promote the interconnectedness and functionality of the three arms of state. The Constitution prescribes important roles for the Chief Justice during a transition from one parliament to the other. It is the Chief Justice that sets the date of the first sitting of the House of Parliament. I must say that on this one, I nearly called and said, Chief Justice, that's too soon. But you are exercising your responsibility. But also it is the Chief Justice that presides over the swearing in of members as well as the election of office bearers of Parliament and the President. During this 7th administration, I'm sure a majority of citizens might have wondered why you decided meticulously at every point to ask the members whether they understood the oath of office they were taking. It might have seemed trivial to others, but coming from the history of state capture in our country, I think it was important. Because in a sense, you wanted to show that this is an important institution to which you must execute your responsibility with full understanding of what you have committed yourself to. We wish to thank you, Chief Justice, for what you have done. But I also want to say the relationship between Parliament and yourself as Chief Justice, particularly following the responsibility you had on state capture to do their work, particularly in holding the executive accountable and ensuring that the implementation of the recommendations will actually be done fully. We are committed to ensuring that through our rules, we will tighten accountability of the executive and put a spotlight on the quality and comprehensiveness of the responses that we get from the executive. But I want to say, Chief Justice, we will also continue to engage your colleagues, particularly where there might be areas that are not so clear as to how we have to undertake them, given that our democracy is still young and it's evolving. So from part of Parliament, now I'm retired, I'm a free man, sending us lunch. I think wherever you'll be, in the malls, in the streets, people will still remember you as Justice Zondo. And also thank my sister Stembele and the family. It has not been easy, I'm sure, not only the 27 years, but before that, looking and having to share your husband, with all of us. You've remained in the shadows, but you never took that negatively. You gave the support, and I'm sure at times, when we did not know even the pain we might have caused to your loved one. But you did not say, "Hayi, ambohlala ekhaya," or change the profession, but you stayed the cause until the end. Siyabonga, nindaba kaMthiyane. Before I conclude, allow me to thank Justice Zondo and say it is befitting that we do so during this month of August, particularly for the work you have done in supporting women judges and creating an enabling environment that they can actually be part of this profession. So I'd like to say thank you to you. And how wonderful that you passed the baton to my sister, Justice Maya. We want to welcome you and say congratulations is a tough, but you are up to the task. And I'm sure you have got sisters and brothers who will be there to walk the journey with you. I thank you.
Now to the man of the moment, Chief Justice, may we please have your reply to this outpouring of love.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Justice Designate, Justice Mandisa Maya, for giving me this opportunity. President Mbeki, former President of the Republic, and Mrs. Mbeki, Honorable Ms. Togo Didiza, Speaker of the National Assembly, Minister Simelane, Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development. I've already acknowledged the Deputy Chief Justice, the Archbishop of Cape Town, Archbishop Tabo Makgoba, Deputy Minister Nel, Deputy Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, my colleagues, Justices of the Constitutional Court present, retired Justices of the Constitutional Court present here, Justices of the Supreme Court of Appeal present, Judges President, and all judges who are with us today. The retired Chief Justice Mogoeng and his wife. I'm trying to see where they are. Oh, okay. Regional Court Presidents and Chief Magistrates present, heads of Chapter 9 institutions present, the Secretary General of the Office of the Chief Justice, heads of departments and Directors General who are with us this morning, as well as other senior officials, representatives of the legal profession, members of the public following these proceedings via virtual platforms, members of the media present, Mam Tembu, Mrs. Zondo, and my children, and other members of the extended family present, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It's no longer morning. Like yesterday, today is a very special day for me and my family. I would like to begin by expressing my sincere gratitude and appreciation to the Committee of the Justices of this court, which is led by Justice Mhlantla, for organizing this ceremony. to bid me farewell. Last night's function was at another level. Nothing was amiss. And I think today's ceremony has been organized just as well. I really want to thank the committee and all my colleagues for honoring me in such a special way. I do want to acknowledge each and every one of you who is here today for taking your time to join us on this special occasion. Many of you would have had important business to attend to, but you made time to be here, and I think that is something that I appreciate very much. However, I would like to especially acknowledge and thank President Mbeki and Mrs. Mbeki for taking their time to be with us today, as well as the Archbishop. We could not be with them last night, and I just want to say you missed a lot. But we know that you had other commitments, and that is why you are not able to be with us, and we thank you that you are able to be with us this morning. We did have former President Motlanthe and his wife who graced the dinner last night and sent an apology that they would not be able to be here today, and I thank them for taking their time to be with us yesterday. As the public knows, the President had publicly indicated that he was going to attend last night's function and he was going to deliver a speech. In the afternoon yesterday, I got a call from him when he indicated that he was no longer able to come. And he was very sad that he was no longer able to come. When he phoned me, he told me that he was with his doctor. And I accepted that it was a valid reason. But I thank him that he had planned to attend, and I thank him that he was able to ask the Minister of Justice to read his speech. I want to take this opportunity to convey my thanks to the President for all the kind words that he said about me in his speech. And I thank the Minister for reading that speech as ably as she did, even though she called me old last night. She said retired people are old people. What happened last night, she was sitting next to me, and there was an accident that happened. The waiters came and put a drink between us, and I went for it. But actually it was not mine, it was hers. I had ordered water, but in my mind it seemed that it was mine. And she said, no, you see, you are retiring. You are old, so you've forgotten. But thank you, Minister, for reading that speech on behalf of the President. what does one say when so many eminent people have said so many kind words about one? Deputy Chief Justice, thank you very much for your speech and for all the kind words that you have said to me, about me. I also thank each and every one of the representatives of the legal bodies who spoke. And I thank the Minister as a representative of the executive for her speech, as well as the Speaker of Parliament. I thank all of you. We do not have the time for me to say even one or two things that each and every one of you said, but I just want you to know that I really appreciate everything that you have said. I used yesterday, last night, to mainly thank people who have been in my life, who have supported me, who have helped me to be where I am. Without going through the names, I repeat that. Because, as I said yesterday, it was not simply me alone. It was not my hard work alone. It was because there were so many people who supported me for me to reach the heights that I did. But this morning, I also want to say thank you to this country for being so kind to me. Indeed, South Africa is a country of great possibilities. It is a country where somebody can be in prison for 27 years and come out of that to be president of the country. Indeed, it is a country where somebody without any formal education can rise to be the president of the country. Indeed, it is a country where a boy from a rural village who fetched firewoods from the forest, put them on his heads to take them home to the family, for the family to make fire and cook. A boy who fetched water from the spring, put a bucket of water on the head, climbed a hill to take it to the family home so that the family could cook and wash. A boy who looked after goats and cattle, who engaged in stick fighting with other boys a boy raised singly by a single parent, a great woman, as a resilient woman, can rise and become ultimately the Chief Justice of this country. I'm very much aware that it's not only me, because I know that the Chief Justice I succeeded came from just as humble beginnings. Chief Justice Mogoeng. He told those who were at the dinner last night how poor he, Justice Matondo, and I were at University of Zululand in the early 80s. He said, you could just see us. Anyone who saw us could just see that these are very poor. He used to use a different term in the past, namely that poverty was written on our foreheads. He used to wear overalls for most of the time. And that was really not because he liked overalls, but that was part of the poverty. That's what I think he got from his father. He too rose from those humble beginnings to be Chief Justice of this country. And he led the judiciary with great distinction for 10 years under very difficult circumstances. And I do want to take this opportunity to acknowledge his outstanding leadership for the judiciary during those 10 years, because we never got an opportunity to give him a proper send-off, because he chose that we shouldn't do it. The contribution he made for the judiciary, in building the judiciary, is immense. The structures he put in place continue to operate. And many of those who are present here and those following on the virtual platform will never forget his Gandla judgment, which, in my view and the view of many, helped to stop the country as it was sliding further down. I want to thank former Chief Justice Mogoeng and his wife for the extraordinary support they have given me over many years. Thank you very much. Words are not enough to describe the kind of support you have given me throughout. So thank you very much. But I want also to say that when I say this country has been very kind to me, in part it is because over my 27 years on the bench, there is no president of this country who served at least a full term who did not appoint me to some or other position. All of them, without exception, who served at least one term, appointed me. President Mandela appointed me as a judge of the Labor Court and also appointed me as a judge of what used to be called the Transvaal Provincial Division of the High Court. President Mbeki appointed me as Judge President of the Labor Appeal Court and Labor Court. President Zuma appointed me as a Justice of the Constitutional Court and subsequently as Deputy Chief Justice. I don't know how happy he is about that. And President Ramaphosa appointed me as Chief Justice. Oh, President Zuma also appointed me as chairperson of the State Capture Commission. So all the presidents have appointed me at some stage or another to some position. I thank President Ramaphosa for having had confidence in me that I would be able to lead the judiciary properly. It's an extraordinary opportunity that I was given to serve as the head of one of the arms of the state. My term of office was short. I wish, of course, it was longer. But our constitution and jurisprudence is clear that there may be no extension of the term of office as Chief Justice. But I'm very grateful to have been given this opportunity to serve in this country as Chief Justice. I want to thank the heads of courts for their support during these 2.5 years. I want to thank my colleagues on the Constitutional Court for their support as well. I want to thank the JSC for the cooperation that we had in working together after the 2022 interviews. We were able to work very well, despite what may have happened at the interviews. Everybody was respectful and courteous and cooperative. And we made the progress that we made, which has been referred to. During my term of office, I've sought to uphold the Constitution. I've sought to uphold the rule of law. I've sought to fight for the independence of the judiciary. Throughout that time, I've been very clear in my own mind that it was my duty to do so. Even if it caused me enemies in the process. When one chooses to accept appointment as a judicial officer, whether magistrate or judge, one has got to appreciate the honor that goes with that. The honor that you are made one of those that society says you are one of those who are going to tell us when we get out of line in terms of the Constitution and the law. From the poorest to the richest, from the powerless to the most powerful. And that, as members of the judiciary, we should never compromise. The confidence in which the society displays in us as the judiciary, or the confidence that they have in us as the judiciary, is earned by ensuring that we uphold the Constitution. We stick to performing our duties in accordance with our oath of office, no matter what. This job forces you sometimes to make judgments that you yourself personally do not like, because when you make judgments, it's not what you personally want that you must do. It is what the Constitution and the law requires. Indeed, Speaker, you referred to the Prince judgment, which you called the marijuana judgment. You must never think that every judgment a judge gives is a judgment that they like. But judges are not going to tell you, I like that judgment, I don't like that judgment. But we take an oath to adjudicate in accordance with the Constitution and the law. And that case too, which was unanimous, was adjudicated in accordance with the Constitution and the law. Of course, there are others, many others, which not just the Constitutional Court, but other courts too, have handed down during our constitutional democracy of 30 years, which sections of society might not like, but they were adjudicated in accordance with the Constitution and the law. As I leave the judiciary, it is my wish that the judiciary should never deviate from that. Being a judge or any judicial officer is not a position where anyone should seek to be popular. It is not a position where anyone should seek to always be praised in the media for their judgments. It is a position where what matters should be whether the judgment or the case has been adjudicated in accordance with the Constitution and the law, without fear, favor, or prejudice. If, as the judiciary, we are seen by society and the public as doing exactly that, we will enjoy a lot of confidence of society. Indeed, as I've said before, in other platforms, when people appear before us, it doesn't matter how unpopular you may be out there, we must treat you with respect and courtesy and give you a fair hearing. And if in terms of the Constitution and the law, you must be successful, you must be successful. You may be the most popular person outside there. If you come before us and in terms of the Constitution and the law, you must fail. You must fail. That must remain something very dear to us. I know that some sectors in society or sections in society make all kinds of allegations against the judiciary, one of which is that the judiciary is captured or some judges are captured. It's only a few. I believe that the majority know that and accept that this judiciary works very hard and performs its functions the way it should. Society must reject those people who keep on making all kinds of accusations against the judiciary when they have no evidence. When they have been called upon to produce evidence and they don't have evidence, but they keep on making allegations that some judges are captured or the judiciary is captured. Society must reject that and say that is not how you behave in a constitutional democracy, because there are mechanisms made available to you, there are fora made available to you where if you have got evidence you can take your complaints and take your accusations, but you cannot continue making all kinds of accusations which you know you cannot prove against the judiciary. It is my hope that going forward there will be less and less of such people. Thank you very much to my colleagues again for all the work we have done together. A lot of it has been mentioned by speakers. I will not mention it again. The work of the Commission, which has been mentioned repeatedly, was very important work for the country. Last night, former Chief Justice Mogoeng explained how it came about that I became the chairperson of that commission. That in fact, he and I were looking for somebody to be chairperson, and we phoned a number of judges and either could not get them or they were not available until he turned to me and said, "What about you, DCJ?" Because we were sitting together when we were doing this. And my answer was, "If you want me to do it, Chief Justice, I will do it." He said, "I want you to do it." At that time, as I've said, I knew what going to that commission meant, but I believed it had to be done. And I'm grateful to all those who were in the commission, and I see some of them in this room, who made sure that the work of the commission was done as well as it was. Many of them sacrificed and worked for months, sometimes without being paid. And I'm grateful to them. It is my hope that indeed mechanisms will be put in place to make sure that we never have a repeat of state capture. But the question arises, are we putting in place such mechanisms? Prosecutions have their place, and indeed, they will contribute. But prosecutions come after the event. They don't prevent. They will help if those who are thinking of engaging in acts of state capture believe that chances are that they will be caught, they'll be arrested, they'll be prosecuted, and that there are good chances they'll be convicted and sent to jail. If they think that chances of them being caught are minimal, or that chances of them being prosecuted successfully are minimal, they will continue. And if those mechanisms are not there, we will have another state capture. One of the things that Parliament and maybe political parties need to reflect on is, how did it come about? What was wrong with our systems that allowed or made it possible for the number one citizen in the country to be part of that? How did it happen that somebody who could do that went through the ranks? What happened to our systems? How do we need to fix them? We have to make sure it doesn't happen again. The best gift that members of the judiciary and my colleagues can give me is that they will remain faithful to their oath of office. They will uphold the Constitution no matter what. They will uphold the rule of law. They will fight for the independence of the judiciary. And they will adjudicate cases in in accordance with the Constitution and the law. With those words, I want to say, South Africa, thank you for being so kind to me and for giving me the opportunities that you gave me. Indeed, it was a singular honor and privilege for me to serve you, the people of South Africa, as your Chief Justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Justice. We have reached the end of our program. We wish to thank you all once more for joining us this morning to participate in this momentous occasion. Your presence here made this event truly special, and we deeply appreciate your contribution. All the lovely comments, the kind words that were said about my colleague, our brother Justice Zondo, stemming from his outstanding accomplishments and the enduring legacy he leaves us. In keeping with our culture, there are refreshments out in the foyer. We hope that everybody will have a bite, will join us, have a bite before leaving the building.
It now falls upon me for the last time to say the court adjourns.